Okay, welcome everybody to this cabinet meeting held here at Penalta House and also on Microsoft Teams, Wednesday the 23rd of July to consider the matters contained in the agenda. Members of the press, the public or press may attend in person at Penalta House or may view the meeting via the live link on our website. This meeting will be live streamed and a recording made available to view via the council's website, except for discussions involving confidential or exempt items. Therefore, the images and audio of those individuals present and or speaking will be publicly available to all via the recording on the council's website. Agenda item 1, to receive apologies for absence. Any apologies? Nothing so far. Good. Declarations of interest. Councillors and officers are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal and or prejudicial interest in respect of any item of business on the agenda in accordance with the Local Government Act 2000, the Council's Constitution and the Code of Conduct for both councillors and officers. Shane Cook.
Thank you, Leader. Agenda item 7 involving Plaster Berlin. I need to leave the meeting and not take part due to family member being a pupil, and I'm Vice Chair of Governors.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Cook. All right, Bob?
Yeah, that's we've discussed this, Leader, prior to the meeting, and that is totally in order. It's the fact that Councillor Cook has a relative at the school is the issue there. Thank you.
And just to say, obviously, when it came to apologies, I forgot to mention Mark S. Williams and Marcus Lloyd, two executive directors that are away on annual leave. To approve and sign the following minutes. So these are the minutes of the meeting of the Wednesday, the 25th of June. And I'll go through them page by page for accuracy. Please stop me at any point. Page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Would anybody like to move those minutes? Councillor Chris Morgan and seconded by Councillor Nigel George. All those in favour, hands up. The unanimous. Thank you very much. Move on to the cabinet work programme, which we got going right into December. Any comments? All those happy with the whole work programme? Show of hands. Thank you. And with that, we'll move to agenda item 5, the future waste and recycling collection arrangements. I'm going to ask Councillor Chris Morgan, Cabinet Member for this area, to introduce this report. Chris.
Thank you, Leader. The purpose of this report is to present a series of waste service changes aligned with the approved waste and recycling strategy and the public consultation, and seek the endorsement of Cabinet today. Implementation of all proposed service changes is scheduled for late 2027 to early 2028, allowing sufficient time for planning and procurement. Following approval of the waste and recycling strategy in September 2024, this report outlines a series of implementation proposals. These include further details of the receptacles that will be used for the blueprint recycling service, a reduction in the collection of residual waste to 3 or 4 weekly, the implementation of seasonal, fortnightly garden and waste collections, and the introduction of a separate absorbent hygiene products collection service to coincide with the reduction in frequency of residual waste collections. These proposals align with the Welsh Government's collections blueprint and address some of the issues raised from the public consultation on the waste and recycling strategy. On the 10th of June 2025, officers presented the proposals contained within the report to the cross-party members working group. The questions posed to the group along with their votes on each of the options is contained within 10.4 of the report. The group was very supportive of this report, and after a very forthright discussion, in conclusion, the financial implications of these options/proposals is shown in 8.2 of the report. The options agreed by the working group of recycling made up of 3 weighted bags and 2 plastic containers, a 3 weekly residual collection, 3 seasonal and fortnightly garden waste collections, and reduction of a minimum child level to 1 for free absorbent hygiene products, including nappies, for a weekly collection. Collectively, the options agreed aim to enhance the recycling performance, reduce environmental impact, and improve service efficiency. The options take a balanced, resident-focused approach, making the best use of resources while ensuring operation resilience and service equity across the borough. All recommended changes will come in, as previously mentioned, in 27-28 if agreed today. This report has gone through the scrutiny process on the 17th of June. Cabinet are asked to endorse the recommendations under 5.6 in the report, and also that they were agreed at scrutiny. These being 1, to agree recycling containers under option 2 of the report, agree a 3 weekly residual collection as in option 1 of the report, agree seasonal and fortnightly garden waste service, agree the introduction of a weekly absorbent hygiene service, and finally, to reduce the eligibility criteria from the existing 2 children in nappies to 1. I so move.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Morgan. Do we have a seconder for this, Councillor Nigel George?
Thank you. Happy to second the report.
Okay, with that, the debate is in order. Do we have any questions? Councillor Elaine Forrest.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to ask a question regarding option 2 on page number 18. It's regarding, I believe this was approved by scrutiny as well. It's regarding the cardboard and paper receptacles, which are identified here as bags. Can I ask, will we be able to take paper and cardboard if it gets wet, or have we got options in place to stop it getting wet? Will the bags be weighted to stop them blowing away? Will older and disabled people be supported to move these? That's the first question. And my second question is, what would be the consequences to the council and residents to remain in the same system that we currently hold?
Okay, a couple of questions there. Hayley, first of all, this is going through the waste group and through scrutiny for option 2. And then about the receptacles, about the options, what would have happened if we didn't change? Thanks, Hayley.
Okay, thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor. So first of all, to take the question around the receptacles, specifically those for paper and card. So that is based upon best practice of other authorities across Wales. And just to answer the specific questions, the bags are not open bags like we would use with the current garden waste system. They've actually got a sort of a flap on them. So that would protect sort of the moisture, etc. There are various bags on the market. We haven't gone into the detail of exactly which bags we would procure, but what I do know is there are lots of options where the bags are weighted. So that would certainly help with any concerns around receptacles blowing away, etc. In terms of the other part of your question, which I think you said around assistance for people that may have trouble, we currently offer, and we would continue to offer, an assisted collection whereby perhaps the most vulnerable in society or those with mobility issues have issues in bringing and presenting waste at the curbside. So that offering would still be in place with a new system. So yes, that would be there. And in terms of, can you just repeat the second part of it? There was quite a few questions there. It was around the options, I think, Councillor.
No, I think you covered the first question.
Yeah, the first one. I'm moving on to the second one now.
The second one was, what would be the consequences to this council and residents if we were to maintain the system we currently use?
Okay, so in terms of maintaining our existing system, as members are aware and has been reported quite widely, we are currently not reaching Welsh Government statutory targets. So Cabinet, in response to that, have adopted the waste strategy, which is very much based on that transition to a source-separated blueprint collection. So there are a number of quick wins that we've implemented. and some of those will contribute positively to our performance. But I think the key point here is that with all the modelling work that was done by RAP and their appointed consultants, when we were preparing the waste strategy, we looked at numerous options, including retaining our existing service and changing to a variety of different services. And I think the key point is that it's only the blueprint system with reductions in residual collections and some changes to organics that actually allowed the authority on the modelling to meet the statutory recycling targets. And I think the consequences of us not achieving those targets are first and foremost in terms of financial penalties that could be placed upon the authority. And then obviously there's the reputational risk on the authority of us not meeting targets. So that was the one. The reason for that option was that it met the 70% target and beyond.
Okay, thanks, Hayley. And just to get back to the first comment by Councillor Forehead, this went through. This has been agreed by scrutiny option 2, and it was the recommendation of the Waste Working Group.
Yeah, that's correct, Leader. So it went to the cross-party member working group, where it was unanimously supported in terms of option 2 for the containers. And yes, it went to scrutiny as well, where again, that recommendation for option 2 was carried.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Hayley. Any further questions? Councillor Nigel George.
Thank you, Leader. Our recycling currently is commingled. This is very popular. Can't we retain this system and increase our percentages with quick wins?
Hayley.
Thank you, Councillor. I probably just touched upon this in the previous question, but just to echo what I said there, in terms of the quick wins that we've implemented, so things like the free food waste liners, the pre-sort requirements at HRCs, then yes, those things will contribute positively to our overall recycling performance. But as I just mentioned in the previous question, the modelling that was undertaken when we developed the strategy by RAP and their appointed consultants demonstrated that those alone would not be sufficient for us to hit the statutory recycling targets. Without that change to a recycling blueprint system, it was felt that we would not meet those higher targets.
Okay, thanks, Hayley. Councillor Philbert Leonard.
Thank you, Leader. Will we see a reduction in glass recycling if Welsh Government introduce a deposit return scheme? And how will this affect our business plan for a saleable commodity? Thank you.
Hayley.
Thank you. So in terms of the deposit return scheme, the DRS scheme, Welsh Government intend to include glass beverage bottles in the DRS for Wales, which is likely to commence in 2027. However, the full details on how this is going to work haven't been determined as yet. What is known is that across the UK, for plastic and metal, a deposit will be charged when a beverage container is bought and refunded when a beverage container is returned. The important difference is, as you've mentioned there in the question, glass will be included in Wales, but it's not going to be included in the DRS for the rest of the UK. What I can say is that on the DRS, a consultation on the scheme is planned to start later in the summer. And the intention of that is to get the views of stakeholders, including local authorities, which will then feed into the design of the final scheme. Earlier this month, so I think it was about the 10th of July, Welsh Government announced that glass will be collected and included from day one of the scheme, but they also said that initially the deposit won't apply. So some residents may choose, and these are unknowns, I guess, some residents may choose to take a glass bottle back to the point of purchase when the deposit's incentive comes in, or they may continue to recycle at home and not take it back for the deposit. Those are unknown. Probably worth noting when we're talking about glass, and when I'm saying Welsh Government are including glass, that is only glass bottles, beverage container glass. So it doesn't include non-beverage bottles, and it doesn't include sort of glass jars and things either. So it's important perhaps to note that. And I suppose just one final thing to mention on that, Councillor, in relation to the last point about the value of the commodities. we'll have an issue with separately collected glass, which what would be the case when we move to a blueprint, versus glass that is currently recovered via a process, via a MRF. Now, the scheme is going to target glass regardless of how we collect. But I suppose what I would say, there'll be lower tonnages of high quality glass is probably financially better for the authority than lower tonnages of low quality glass, which is what we currently get from our system. Yeah, so that's all I can say at the moment. Like I said, there's still lots of work to be done on the DRS, so I can't really give any more indication on how it will impact on us, but we will certainly be responding to the consultation.
Okay, thanks, Hayley. I can only say, speaking from experience, I was recently in Germany where they do have the deposit return scheme on plastic bottles, and it certainly feels like it significantly cleans up the streets. That's for sure. Any further questions? Councillor Carol Andrews.
Thank you, Leader. I was just wondering, why will it take so long to implement the changes? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. So the shift to a blueprint recycling collection necessitates the need for a new depot and recycling facility for bulking and processing materials. The timescales involved in that, from everything from acquiring the site, developing the site, seeking the necessary planning and permitting, would mean it would not be possible for us to have a site ready until late 2027, early 2028. It would just not physically be possible with all that needs to be done to facilitate the changes. However, as we've touched upon this afternoon, there are a number of initiatives that have and will continue to be implemented within that time frame. So they include the provision and the continued provision of the free food waste liners, which was introduced early in 2024, and the extension of Section 46 of the Environment Protection Act to tackle recycling being placed in the residual waste streams, and that's going to be launched later this year. So whilst the big changes to recycling won't come in until then, because of the reasons I explained, there will be some progression and activity being introduced within that time frame.
Okay, thank you, Hayley. Any further questions? Councillor Jamie Pritchard.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. I know Welsh Government have got a very ambitious target to be at the highest percentage of recycling in the world. I think we're number 2 at the moment, which is obviously very impressive, but that does come with financial challenges for local authorities and for Welsh Government as well. I know the statutory target at the moment is 70%, which we're not meeting currently. But do you know when Welsh Government are going to implement the next target? Because the only way Welsh Government are going is obviously upwards.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Yeah, you're entirely right. So Welsh Government's goal is to be zero waste by 2050. The only statutory target that's currently in place is, as you mentioned, the 70% target. It is very, very likely that there will be future statutory targets introduced to move Wales from 70% to a zero waste by 2050. We haven't got an indication of when they will come in as yet, but I would be imagining that's going to be made known to Welsh local authorities within the next sort of months and years. But certainly, I think there will be higher targets introduced.
Sadie, just a second question. It's already been mentioned a couple of times, but could you just outline the additional services we're going to be bringing in as a result of these changes?
Okay, so what's included in the report? We spoke a lot this afternoon about the changes to recycling collections, but as well as that, in the report, you will see a recommendation to the reduction in frequency of residual waste, currently collected fortnightly to 3 weekly. Alongside that, we're proposing the introduction of a weekly absorbent hygiene product collection, which is essentially a collection for residents who may produce high qualities of AHP waste, which in essence is nappies and incontinence pads. So that will coincide with the reduction in frequency of refuse. And the other part of what we're looking at bringing in is the garden waste service changing from what it currently is. So we currently collect garden waste weekly, but we collect it weekly because we co-collect it with food waste on a split back vehicle. under the new proposed changes, food waste will continue to be collected weekly, but on the same vehicle as the recycling. So we're proposing then we reduce the frequency of the garden waste service to fortnightly and only operate that through the summer months. And you'll see in the report we've suggested, based on the public consultation, the way we had initially proposed that run from March to October. Based on that public consultation, we're now suggesting that runs from March until November. So that, in essence, is the key changes included in the report. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Hayley. Councillor Leonard Stella.
Thank you, Leader. These changes won't be popular with many of our residents. Many councils have already made these changes and have had teething problems with the implementation of the changes. Have we spoken to the other councils that have already made these changes to take advice from their experiences?
Hayley, I'm guessing RAP would have also had a lot of input from other councils, yeah?
Yeah, 100%. So we as a council, we've certainly spoken, and not just spoken, but visited several other authorities who have implemented the change to source segregated recycling collections. In fact, members of the cross-party working group were also present on a lot of those visits. So we visited a number of authorities. And yet we will certainly learn from their experiences. As members are aware, and as the leader just pointed out, we are working extensively with RAP Cymru in the implementation of all these changes. RAP have supported many other local authorities throughout these changes, and we will certainly be working with those to learn any lessons from those changes. They are involved in all of the working groups, all of the discussions. I mentioned earlier, they did some work on the modelling, so we will certainly be working with them in terms of getting their experience. And some of that that's coming through is around the need for really clear, robust communication. So, you know, with that in mind, we're already taking steps in producing the communications plan, which I know members have raised previously, and it was something raised by both the cross-party working group and scrutiny. So, you know, we will be producing a very detailed, comprehensive communication plan in relation to the changes. And as members are aware, we have appointed 6 recycling advisors, and we're currently out to recruitment for a further 6. So the remit of those 12 staff is to be out in the community, speaking to residents. You may have seen them in the recent summer fates, but they're out in the community speaking to residents, and I think they will be key as well. And that's certainly something we've learned from other authorities in making sure that that communication is robust. Go.
Councillor Philbert Leonard.
Thank you. I'm assuming that these new proposals will be a lot more physical for our operators, our staff on the ground. Can you tell me what kind of safeguarding measures have been put in place, you know, for the staff? Obviously, at the moment, the bins pick up the bins, but will they be asked to be lifting these sacks into the thing? I just want to know what's in place for the workers.
Hayley.
Thank you, Councillor. So yes, you're entirely right. In terms of the collection system that we will be operating, it is certainly more manually intensive. So they will be, instead of pushing a bin, like you said, and lifting it up, they will be handling the containers and emptying them into container. It is a lot of a longer process, so the number of collections that each operative will undertake each day is a lot lower than they currently do. But we are working with health and safety in making sure we've got risk assessments in place. And just to pick up on the previous question, we're also liaising with other authorities in relation to that. It's not dissimilar to how we operate other services. Members will be aware, you know, the food and garden waste service, there are containers being placed that are lifted and then emptied into receptacles. So it's not something we're not familiar with, but we'll be making sure that all the staff will have the necessary training, the necessary risk assessments in place and the appropriate equipment to be able to do that. And when we're talking about the containers that have been selected, option 2 in the report, those things have been taken into account in terms of the size of the containers we're proposing.
Okay, thank you very much. No further indications. Thank you, Hayley. Just before we go to the recommendations, I'd just like to say thank you very much that what we've got coming is 6 extra recycling advisors and another 6 to follow. We do have a long lead-in time in order to inform our residents, because this report is being agreed now, yet implementation is likely to take place in late 27, maybe even early 2028. So we certainly got time enough to inform our residents and to get them on board with it. Although I think most residents generally are in favour of increasing recycling rates. And with no further questions then, Rob, if we can go to the recommendations.
Yes, Leader. Members, could you please vote on the 4 recommendations within the report on the poll that is before you now? Anybody having any difficulties, please let me know. And Leader, that has been unanimously approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Agenda item 6, the community asset transfer policy refresh. I'm going to ask Councillor Nigel George to introduce this report. Nigel.
Thank you, Leader. The purpose of the report is to seek the views and endorsement of Cabinet for the refreshed community asset transfer policy and relating documents. The updated policy aims to enhance community empowerment, align with strategic objectives, and support economic and social benefits. In summary, the Council is facing significant financial challenges and simply cannot afford to deliver everything it currently does. This refreshed approach is an opportunity to deliver savings while safeguarding valued community assets and, in some cases, services. By facilitating the transfer of assets to capable community organisations, the policy aims to generate economic and social benefit. This could include employment and volunteering opportunities, improved and strengthening community services. A community asset transfer policy defines how a local authority handles asset transfers with a specific focus on community ownership. We are updating and enhancing our approach to transfer land, buildings and services to the community. The policy replaces the original CAT policy endorsed by Cabinet in 2019 and the Council's increased emphasis on empowering communities. The revised policy is included in Appendix 1 for reference. By providing clearer guidelines and support, the refreshed policy will empower local communities to take ownership of assets, fostering greater community engagement. I move the recommendations the Cabinet consider and provide their views on the refreshed community asset transfer policy, relating documents, and recommend that Cabinet approve the proposed refreshed policy approach, acknowledge actions that are underway and approve the outlined routes for the pilot schemes and the new applications being considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor George. Do we have a second for that? Councillor Stenner?
Yeah, more than happy to second the recommendations in the report, but I do have a question. Once a community asset transfer has progressed and it is offered to a group, what support is available to the group once the asset has been transferred?
Okay, Leslie?
So we provide handover support to ensure that the groups fully understand the legal risks and liabilities that they're undertaking. And we also provide aftercare support and monitoring, so we ensure that all of the statutory maintenance tasks are up to date. And we also advise them about funding streams that they can apply for. So we're there for any questions they may have that come up over the course of the transition and then into the future.
Good. Councillor Jamie Pritchard.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. It's been great to sit in Cabinet and see those who are engaging with officers through the CAP process actually come to Cabinet to present a case for taking on a community asset. We had the 2 from Risca last month and Rumney previously, so it's really good to hear from those groups. I just wondered whether officers had a view on the new streamlined approach, how is this going to further enhance the opportunities for community groups out there? Thanks, Leader.
It's been really well received by the community. We're having some really positive conversations. I think there was a perception that it was quite slow, quite cumbersome previously, and it was hard to get hold of information. So, you know, some of this stuff is the same information presented slightly differently. So just in a more accessible manner for those community groups. They've been you know, we've recently had more out for expressions of interest at the moment. We've received a really good response to this. So, you know, the communities are there, they're ready to step in as far as I can see so far.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. Any further questions? I certainly think that this is something that absolutely needs to be celebrated. I know we've trialed this new process and things are really going well. I know that from the interest that we've had coming back on our libraries, I'm very confident that we are creating much more dynamic and vibrant facilities in our communities and making much better use of buildings. So I'm certainly very fully endorse the recommendations myself. I'll be asking Rob then if we can go to the vote, Rob.
Certainly, Leader. Members, there are two recommendations within the report before you. Could you please vote on those recommendations? And Leader, those recommendations are unanimously approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Thank you very much. If we can move on now to the Sustainable Communities for Learning, there's an update on Placervelin Primary School. I will ask, oh, sorry, yes, Councillor Cook has just left as he declared an interest earlier. And I'll ask Councillor Carol Andrews, Cabinet Member for Education, to introduce the report. Carol.
Thank you, Leader. So the purpose of today's report is to update members on the Sustainable Communities for Learning Band B proposal in respect of a new replacement Placervelin Primary School on the existing site. Cabinet are being asked to endorse the recommendation due to an identified increase in the financial contribution that is required to complete the project. As you'll remember, Cabinet approved the proposal for a new replacement Placervelin Primary School on January 26, 2022, and the new school will aim to be net zero carbon and provide integrated childcare facilities. The project was initially budgeted at £20,483,000 and is now estimated to cost £23,256,812. And this is due to further site investigations, design confirmations and inflation in the construction sector. Welsh Government will contribute £14,753,000, while the authority's revised contribution is £7,494,452. The recommendations in 3.1 ask Cabinet to consider the information contained in the report, approve the recommendation that a further £1,064,452 is set aside from the authority's unallocated capital grant and £700,000 is set aside from the authority's education core capital basic need accommodation in respect of the authority's financial contribution to the Placervelin Primary School proposal as part of the Sustainable Communities for Learning Band B programme. I move. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Andrews. Do we have a seconder for this? Councillor Philippa Leonard. Oh, sorry, Councillor James Richard.
That's okay. Thanks, Leader. Yeah, happy to second the report. Can I just say, in terms of Sustainable Communities for Learning, it's a fundamental part of the transformation programme. Recently, all 69 members of the council were invited to walk through the Agile space regarding the transformation programme, so they would have seen the map of the investments that we're making across the county borough. Of course, school builds are extremely important, but in terms of this particular one, in my own ward, it has gone through the planning process. I watched the planning committee recently as local ward members submitted our response from the community The community are very much in favour of the school going ahead, and it gives me great pleasure to second the report. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pritchard. The dreaded but persistent rate of inflation hits again. Currently running, I think, at 3.1%, but certainly higher than that in building costs. Do we have any questions on this? Councillor Leonard-Stenner.
Thank you, Leader. Well, it's lovely to see such a positive report that will certainly enhance our children's education. Can officers confirm that this project would have not come to fruition or won't come to fruition if this authority did not have any reserves to fund this project?
Andrea.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, Councillor Stenny, you are correct in what you say. The expectation from Welsh Government with regards to these projects is the authority contributes to 35% of the cost of the delivery. So unless we had that 35%, the project wouldn't be able to proceed because Welsh Government actually contribute 35% of the cost of the project, and they fund the net zero carbon element of the project 100%. So you are correct in what you're saying. Without our reserves, we wouldn't have been able to progress with this project.
So we pay 35%, Welsh Government paying 65%, and when we have an uplift, a cost uplift like this, they cover their element of that uplift?
A full business case has been submitted to Welsh Government for approval of their uplift. We've had verbal approval that they're happy to proceed. We're just waiting for the Minister to sign off.
Thank you, Andrea. To answer your question. Thank you. Any further questions? No further comments. I will say this report did recently go through scrutiny, and it wasn't unanimously supported, which was quite a shock to find that somebody was against this slight uplift, paying this slight uplift to build a brand new school. But we're all very different. Rob, if we could go to the vote on this.
Yes, thank you, Leader. 2 recommendations in the report this time, members. Please make your vote on those recommendations on the poll before you. And Leader, the recommendations are unanimously approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Rob? Yes, we'll just call Councillor Cook back into the room. Welcome back, Councillor Cook. And with that, we'll move to the final agenda item, which is the K-Cubed costing tool for Commission Social Care Services. A tongue twister of a title. And I'm going to ask Elaine Forehead to introduce this. Elaine.
Thank you, Leader. I'm not going to challenge you on that one. The purpose of the report is to request Cabinet's approval of the use of social services reserves to purchase K-Cubed, which is a costing tool to be used in the commissioning of external care services, primarily long-term care placements for adults and children's services. It's proposed purchase of the tool for 3 years at a cost of £141,500 and will ensure we comply with the National Commissioning Framework and standards, specifically Standard 7, understanding the costs of care, and Standard 8, setting fair and sustainable fees. The tool will also support us to implement an approach to the Eliminate agenda in respect of children's residential care services. K-Cubed will also be used to review current high placement costs and establish the potential for saving on those costs. I would like to move the recommendation at 3.1 that £141,500 be transferred from the Social Services General Reserve to create an earmark reserve to fund the commissioning and implementation costs of the K-Cubed costing tool, as set out in Section 8 of the report. Officers are present to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Forehead. Do we have a seconder for this? Councillor Leonard?
Happy to second the recommendations set out in the report, Leader. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Leonard. With that, the debate is in order. Do we have any questions? Councillor Shane Cook.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I've got a couple of questions. Going to go through each one, yeah. So I understand this costing tool simplifies the process of calculating and negotiating care costs. Do we have any examples of savings from other authorities in the UK that have used this costing tool?
Joe or Viv? Yeah.
Viv's going to take it as the expert.
Okay, welcome, Viv.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we've got some examples. So in Wales at the moment, Flintshire, Denbighshire and Conway all use the K-Cube costing tool. I've had some figures from Conway at the moment. That's the only one I've had from in Wales. They've realised a saving or managed to realise a saving of around about £50,000 in the first 2 placements they looked at. So £50,000 a year. Clearly, every local authority is going to be very, very different in terms of what they can achieve as cost savings. But Conway have managed that. I have checked on the K-Cube website just before the meeting, just because of I haven't had anything to do at all with the English local authorities that have used K-Cube. But I can see that Leicestershire managed to save £774,000 as part of negotiations in a year for children's services placements, the majority of which were very complex, high-cost placements for children in residential care. There was some that linked into mental health step-down facilities from a children's services perspective, but those are the 2 examples I can offer you this afternoon.
Okay, thank you, Viv. Anything further, Shane?
Yes, second question is how many officers will need to be trained to use the costing tool? And will we be focused on certain placements in the first instance?
Okay, thank you. So if I take the second part of that question first, just going back to the link to the first question, high cost placements is certainly something that we need to be having a look at, and that's across children's services and adult services. And then the first bit of the question around officers. So from a commissioning perspective, children's and adult services, I think we'll probably have between 7 and 9 officers that will need the training. There's no limit in terms of the training that's offered by K-Cubed for the implementation and the training for staff, but I would say between 7 and 9.
Thank you. And the last question I got is, could the K-Cube costing tool affect smaller providers who may have unique costs?
It could, but I think that's where it's really important that as local commissioners, we think intelligently about the commissioning that we're undertaking with particularly small providers, and that approach needs to be proportionate. So even with the use of the costing tool, we still have to consider our resources in the local authority and in terms of what we can afford as well. But what it allows us to be is transparent and properly understand the costs of care that we're commissioning. So it's about a proportionate approach to make sure that we maintain a stable market in the social care sector.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Jamie Pritchard.
Thanks, Leader. This to the director. That's okay. So this is clearly showing that digital transformation is happening in social care. Just wondered if there was an update on adult and social care within our transformation programme, looking through the lens of transformation.
Yeah, so thank you, Councillor. So both Children's Services and Adult Services are engaged in our transformation programme. Children's Services has been in discovery for a number of weeks, and actually the kick-off meeting for the Adult Services project happened yesterday. So as I say, Children's Services are still in discovery. They've started by looking at processes centred on the Information Advice and Assistance Service. So as you know, it's the joint front door for adult services and children's services within social services. There have been some opportunities that have been identified already. So one is just simply around opening up access for officers to an IT system in another service area. So it's a fairly sort of simple step, but it's an opportunity that's arisen just through the discovery phase, initial discovery phase in children's services. So it should make the process more efficient, should save officer time on in two different service areas. And then also within children's services, we have been piloting Copilot. So that's the Microsoft AI product. And we're just this week ramping up that pilot. So just implementing an expansion of that within children's services. So colleagues are fully engaged in in the transformation program, and as I've indicated, already seeing opportunities and options and benefits to explore.
Yeah, okay, thanks for that, Rob. That's good to know. I mean, if something such as the K-Cube costing tool can bring significant cost reductions, when you look at the whole transformation, the whole digital infrastructure in an area that's one of our highest spends, obviously social care, it's good to know that we're on that transformational journey in that area. Do we have any further questions, members? Nothing, nobody indicating. Okay, just one question from me. On the back of at the back of the report, it mentions that both Councillor Teresa Parry is the Chair of Education and Social Services and Councillor Donna Cushing is the Chair of Education and Social Services. We can't have two chairs of one committee meeting. I'm just wondering how there's some confusion there. Is that okay, Joe?
Yeah, the confusion is because they swap over. They do 6 months each. So we'd left the one on there. It should be Councillor Cushing only.
Okay, no, I get that. That's
So we can amend that.
so they're doing the hokey-cokey. Okay,
Yeah.
Rob.
Yeah, so it is sort of hokey cokey. I think it was just decided that as Councillor Cushing has just chaired the last scrutiny committee last week, but is handing over to Councillor Parry in September. I think for consultation purposes, it was just felt appropriate just to share it with them both. I appreciate that as it's shown as them both as chair, that looks confusing, but at least in terms of our consultation arrangements, that's completely covered off.
Okay, thanks for that, Rob. With that then, that confusion settled, we'll go to the recommendations at 3. Rob?
Thanks, Leader. Members, please vote on the single recommendation within the report. It's before you. And Leader.
Sorry, Rob, I haven't voted, but I'm voting for.
Yeah, okay, I know, so you're up to 8. So Councillor Cook, you're voting for. Okay, so we'll make a note of that. So Leader, the recommendation is unanimously approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Rob, and that brings this cabinet meeting to a close, but I would just like to say thank you to the committee services. You'll all notice that we've got new microphones here and new cameras, and they certainly seem to have improved things. I look forward to looking at the webcast later. Thank you all.